First question I'll ask you. Have you ever found yourself in a situation when you were taken advantage of simply because you were not fully aware of your rights and the means of protection? Later on, you were reflecting and asking yourself, how the hell did this happen? How come I was not aware of that? So, how aware are you of yourself? Take a few seconds to think about it. If your instinct answer is, please, I'm very well aware of myself, I know myself very well, then take a few seconds more. You see, self-awareness is not something immediate, constant, or always at your disposal. Self-awareness is more than knowing yourself. It's knowing your rights, obligations, responsibilities. It's understanding the circumstances. It's being aware of your capabilities and limits. Here, I'm not talking from the psychological perspective, not about the subconscious or the things beyond your control. Rather about something you do have control over, but there's someone, spoiler, it's you, who is blocking you from recognizing all the options you have, from making informed decisions or choices, or acting appropriately and consciously in interaction with the world around you. Self-awareness is very crucial, especially in professional sphere. Even in corporate environment, where you have the high corporate culture, with its inclusion, diversity, still there are situations when people are being taken advantage of, or even exploited. I've been asked to advise high-profile employees which were being taken advantage of while they were working in a developed country within a robust legal system in a multinational corporation. And they are very knowledgeable and very educated people. Still, this happened. Why? Because they were not fully aware of their rights and the means of protection. Psychological pressure can outweigh the most robust legal means of protection. So, when was the last time you lost your battle simply because you were not fully aware of the options you have? Ask yourself. This self-awareness is life-changing. And it's not only about our own personal success. It affects other people around us. It affects entire communities, even countries. And here I give you the example from the international sphere. And very hot subject, literally hot subject, climate change. So meanwhile, all of us are claiming about the climate change, blaming either the climate itself or the politicians. The group of Swiss seniors took their rights a little bit further. They proceeded to the European Court of Human Rights, claiming that Switzerland is not fulfilling their positive obligations of the state. Insufficient actions of Switzerland towards the climate change violated the fundamental human rights. And they raise such rights as right to life, right to health, right to family, privacy. And you know what? European Court of Human Rights found merit. They said, yes, you're correct. It recognized that climate change is part of the human rights issue. And it's not only the European Court of Human Rights. It's a part of a global movement. It's not only the Swiss sinners we can be inspired from, but ordinary people all around the globe of different statuses, students, workers, civil servants, are taking actions or standing up for a cause. And it affects us, not only them. Moreover, talking about the European Court of Human Rights, affects us here directly in Prague, because the Czech Republic is a member state of the Council of Europe, and such rulings are recognized as binding here. But also, given the position of the European Court of Human Rights, its decisions are being inspiration or references all around the world. You might say, not everyone can be an activist. They're seniors, they have a lot of time, right? It is true, it's a valid point. Activism looks differently for each of us. It's not necessarily bringing a claim to the court. It's not necessarily participating in the protests. It could be expressed differently. Social media post, the way of expression. Standing up for an action, speaking up, researching. All of this means, you know it, you name it. Moreover, self-awareness helps us recognize that we have different choices, we have different options. It makes us realize that we can do informed decisions based on this. And when it is expressed incorrectly, it also has consequences for each of us. So there's an example of the lack of self-awareness I'll provide you within the climate change again. Recently, the London court ruled on the case of the climate change activists which attempted to damage the painting of Van Gogh, Sunflower. Have you ever seen this painting? The court harshly responded to it. Well, the cause, of course, is very important. They attempted to raise awareness. But what were the ways of expression? Expression was misguided. And that's exactly actually the example of what we can understand and what can we influence, what we can change in our actions. So, on the one side, we have the ruling of the European Court of Human Rights with the activists who asserted our rights, and then we have the ruling of the London Court, which will have the harmful impact and the consequences for the even peaceful protesters in the future. But what about the other decisions of the other international institutions? Recent rulings of the International Court of Justice within the modern conflicts, such as Ukraine or Gaza in Palestine. The states are not going to implement them, or they are not implementing them now. What is our roles here? What should we do? Should we accept the things as they are, or shall we foster the decisions of the court? My students are always holding this pessimistic thought. They're saying, what is our role here? Conflicts have been forever. They will be forever. We cannot do anything. We just shall accept everything. We don't have any choice. We cannot affect our lives. But that's exactly the thing of the self-awareness. We do have choices. And these choices matter. These choices are powerful, but also empowering. It affects entire communities. Adopting fatalistic acceptance of things might seem easier, but it comes with a great cost. It might lead to the spiral of silence, or the thing when the society drifts into the passivity. And in the end, it's really hard or even impossible to bring up any concern or disagreement. Meanwhile, disagreement, when it expressed peacefully and thoughtfully, has a great impact to the public policy. We are shaping our future. Our choices can shift the public policy. Self-awareness is kind of a friend who gives you kind of support when you need help, but also it gives you a wake-up call when you become blinded by flattery. It gives you recognition of what rights you have, when you can step forward, and when you can step back. What kind of capabilities you have, what kind of rights you have, what kind of means of protection you have, but also what limits you have. Overestimating our expertise is also an example of a lack of self-awareness. Example from a daily life. You all know these celebrities who are talking about something they don't have any clue about. Or male politicians. They are experts in everything. They will decide on the women's body, right? Should the women have right to abortion, right to education, right to employment? What should women dress? Or, should she be protected from domestic violence? It's quite a question. Istanbul Convention, who of you heard of it? What were the reasons not to sign it or ratify it? Or another example, from the social media. The social media gurus giving you financial advice, standing next to the luxury cars. I forgot to mention that it's rented cars. You will say, well, I'm not following these advices. I have my brain to decide it. I'm capable of decision. Maybe you are, but not everyone. Remember of the most vulnerable group we have, children. They're not capable of recognizing the consequences of the action. And now I'll provide you an example of the deadly consequences. It's a recent case where the US Circuit Court was deciding on. A case called Anderson versus TikTok. When a young girl, 10 years old girl, attempted a viral challenge on TikTok, and it led to death. You heard probably many stories about these viral challenges and their harmful consequences for children. And this court's ruling was actually regarding the social media platform. Usually, before, they were enjoying the immunity. They were never held liable or accountable for this kind of stuff. But this is a pivotal decision. They found accountable social media platform for promoting harmful content. You probably read recently stories about TikTok, right? And you'll say, well, in the US, they have it, and we don't have it here. Well, it's not true. It's, again, part of the global movement. Within the European Union, there's a whole legislation about it. Even the Digital Services Act. Who of you heard about it? So self-awareness helps us recognize what rights we have, what means of protection we have. So if there are laws, if there are decisions, if there are regulations, why it's not always implemented and enforced? Well, partially because of our self-awareness or lack of thereof. Self-awareness is a very important thing. It affects not only us, it affects all people around us. It affects entire communities, countries, our present, but also our future. Our future generations are affected by our self-awareness. Artificial intelligence. It's a reflection of our knowledge, expertise, experience, but also self-awareness. It's a kind of an ocean from the book of Polish writer Stanislaw Lem, Solaris, reflects us. The last example I will leave you with, also example from literature. It's early 20th century Greek writer, Nikos Kazantzakis. He was writing about the resistance of the people of Crete against the occupation. He was writing about their fight for freedom. He was probably aware of the power of his voice back then, 100 years ago. But he probably never could imagine that his books, his voice will be so much powerful and relevant nowadays within the light of modern conflicts. And his books will be translated to so many languages, hundreds of years later. Hundreds. Self-awareness is not stable, static, or constant. It changes. It evolves with us and with the world around us. We must nurture it. How? We must stay curious. We need to ask ourselves where we are. Maybe we are overlooking our rights somewhere. Maybe we are underestimating our value, or maybe otherwise we're overestimating our expertise. Finding these gaps helps us to take an action. Either it's education, talking with a friend, speaking up for a cause, organizing a community. Self-awareness is a power. All of us, each of us has access to it. And each of us have to use it and treat it wisely. Thank you very much.